Hello, my name is Tarmo Ahvenheim, and this is the second introduction video to Russian business culture course. And on this video, I will explain some basic concepts and explain why the course is what it is. Someone might be wondering, why do we have the first two units about the culture in general? Why don't we just focus on the Russian culture and learn about the different features of culture, when to shake hands with people and how to greet other people or how to behave in business negotiations. In cultural knowledge, there are two sides. One thing is this information, this kind of information, learning about culture, and of course it can be useful in itself. But on the other hand, it's quite crucial to know how cultures affect our thinking and behavior, what cultures can do and what they cannot do. So, in a way, it's good to know the mechanism how culture affects our thinking and behavior. We can mean different things when we talk about culture. We can talk about culture with probably in everyday language, the most common way to think about the culture is that we talk about the body of mental production that a nation or group of people have done. So, for example, the Russian culture would be something like Russian literature, fine arts, music, fashion, architecture, design, and so on, sports maybe. That's one side of culture. The other side of culture is, in very rough terms, a way of thinking and understanding the world. And this course is very much about the left-hand side concept of culture. There are different definitions of culture. There are hundreds of them. If you Google, you can find them easily. I just introduce a few of them. Culture is the collective programming of the mind, which distinguishes the member of one group or category of people from another. So here's a kind of metaphor that culture is the human mind is like a computer, and we talk about programming of the mind. This is by Hofstede. Then Stella Tingtoomey has defined culture as a patterned way of living by a group of interacting individuals who share similar sets of traditions, beliefs, values, and norms. For Lustig and Koester, culture is a learned set of shared interpretations about beliefs, values, norms, and social practices, which affects the behavior of a relatively large group of people. And William Sewell has defined culture as a system of symbols possessing a real but thin coherence that is continually put at risk in practice and therefore subject to transformation. If we have a look at these definitions, what is common to them, first of all, is that culture is something we have learned. Culture is not something we are born with, but we learn it. We learn it in the community. So it's for the group of people. You cannot have an individual culture. It's always for a group of people. And as Lustig and Koester says, it's for a relatively large group of people. So research of cultures have a bit different opinions whether you can talk about concepts like corporate culture, whether it's a culture at all because it's too superficial. They'd like to talk about the cultural climate, or the corporate climate instead of corporate culture. So in Ting Toom's definition, you can see the word pattern. Culture has some patterns. We can see some certain patterns. And then if we go to move on to Sewell, it's a real but thin. It has a real but thin coherence. So it's not something very solid. And it's continually put at risk. And therefore it changes. It's not solid, it doesn't stay the same. What is culture of your own culture, country, or the culture of your ethnic group or your community is not now the same as it was 50 years ago. To know others, know yourself. That's an old saying, and therefore we start this course from your own culture. You have to define who you are and where you come from, because there is no neutral way of measuring or interpreting cultures. Study of cultures is not like physics or chemistry, where we can make certain experiments or measurements. We have also certain viewpoint of our own, and it's good to be aware of this viewpoint that we have. It is possible to both overestimate and underestimate the significance of culture. What this means is that sometimes we experience things. For example, we go abroad and something funny happens to us, and we start thinking right away, okay, this is a cultural difference. But we have to be quite careful not to overinterpret things. Not everything funny that happens to you in a foreign country is about culture. On the other hand, we may underestimate the significance of culture by thinking, for example, that culture is solid. We may think that, like the name of this course, Russian culture, as if there was just one uniform Russian business culture, which is not true. True, there must be some similarities, but on the other hand, there can be quite big differences, for example, depending on the field of industry, depending on which region you're in, whether you're in the countryside, whether you're in the city. There are differences, there are nuances within the culture. In human behavior, we can find three levels. There is universal level, there's cultural level, and there's individual level. And you can see here 6 different things. Regretting being the cause of accident, respecting other people, eating with knife, fork, and spoon, preferring playing soccer to reading a book, running from a dangerous animal, and being cautious with strangers. If you had to decide which of these are universal, cultural, or individual features, some of them might be quite easy. For example, we can easily conclude that eating with knife, fork, and spoon is a cultural thing, because we know that there are cultures where knife and fork are not used. And it's quite easy to conclude also that preferring playing soccer to reading a book is a kind of individual choice, although it may depend on culture a little bit, which is more valued as a hobby. But then there are some other facts that we misinterpret easily. For example, respecting older people. It's a cultural thing. It's a learned thing. It's not universal. It's not something that everybody does. Running from a dangerous animal is a universal thing. Regretting being the cause of accident is a universal thing. Liking the idea that you have friends is a universal thing. Music is a universal thing. In every culture, there is some kind of music. But even things like being cautious with strangers, that's partly cultural. I'll go back to this for a while. And sometimes we overestimate culture if we think something is cultural when it's only individual. Sometimes we think that something is universal, and we, in a way, think that some people are impolite or behaving funnily because we don't understand that the things we think, behavior patterns that we think are universal, are not actually universal. I'll take an example. In Western culture, looking directly in somebody's eyes is a sign of honesty. And there are people then who have been, there have been Western people who have been in court in East Asian countries. And they have wanted to be honest with the judge. They want to appear honest in front of the judge. And they have looked straight into the eyes of the judge. And of course, yeah. If you know, in many East Asian cultures, you show respect to the other people by not looking straight into their eyes. So this is actually a rude thing to do in some cultures. I mean, with a person who is higher in hierarchy than you. A short note about two kinds of Russian. When we talk about Russian, we can actually talk about two different things. On the left-hand side, we see the adjective Ruski. Now we talk about persons, but this could also refer to a thing. So Ruski is a person who feels that he is ethnically Russian despite the home country. And then we have another term, Rossianin, which is a citizen of the Russian Federation, despite how he or she identifies himself in ethnic terms. Or it could be, we could talk about also some things with the word Rossiyskiy, which is about the same. So what's the difference? Let's take an example. We have three persons, Sergei, Ksenia, and Yelena, and they are not Rossianin. They feel they are Russians, but they are citizens of Estonia, Finland, and the USA. Maybe they were born there, or maybe they have moved there, and they feel that they are Russian. They are ethnically Russian, but they are not Rossianin because they are not citizens of Russia. Then, on the other hand, we have Shoda, Alla, and Rinat, who are all Rossianin. They are citizens of the Russian Federation, but they don't consider themselves ethnically Russian. Shoda considers herself Chechen, Alla Ukrainian, and Rinat Bashkir. So then we have, of course, we can have persons who are both. Polina and Pyotr, they are both ethnically, they consider themselves Russian, and they are also citizens of the Russian Federation. And so it's good to be aware of this difference when in this course we talk about something being Russian. It may be good to think that, are we talking about something that belongs to the country, or are we talking about something that belongs to the ethnic identity? And if you know some Russian, you may be aware of these two different concepts. And also the corresponding adjectives, Ruski and Rossiyskiy. As I said, study of culture is not like physics or chemistry, where we can easily make experiments or measurements. So how can we study culture? There are different ways to do it. And here is a very nice picture by Schneider and Barzou, where culture and study of culture is presented as the sea. So we have the superficial level, where you can swim or you can surf or something. And that is the surface level of culture that we can observe. We can see what kind of clothes people wear. We can see the food people eat. We can see the architecture. We can see certain patterns of behavior. We can see how they greet each other and whether they shake hands or not, or something like that. But we don't know what is behind this behavior, because we can do things for different reasons. Then we have the second level, which is the level of beliefs and values. And they are such beliefs and values that we are aware of ourselves. So you can ask people in a certain culture, what do you think about this? Why you did this way? What is important for you? What is less important for you? We can find out certain things about culture by this kind of interviews and surveys. And in this course, you will become familiar with some of the studies. But then the deepest level are certain assumptions that we are not aware ourselves. And probably this is something that you can learn only if you live in that culture, in that cultural environment for a long time. And it's sometimes something that cannot be put into words because it doesn't take very clear patterns. But of course, some cultural researchers have tried to give some patterns and see the patterns and describe them. Also, the deepest levels of culture. Okay, this is the end of this presentation, and I hope you find some interesting topics in this course. And what I'd like you to do as soon as possible is to do the introduction task 1 in Unit 1. It's the task where you should describe yourself, who you are, and tell about your interests concerning this course. Okay, one more time, welcome to the course.